UNISA's Professor Dirk Kotze joins us now from our Pretoria studios. Prof, a very good evening to you. In the main here, Prof, the organizations that have taken, I guess, the parties to court, or should we say have taken also this constitutional law, which is PAIA, they've taken it to court on the basis that they want transparency in as far as voters are concerned, so that they can make an informed decisions when they go to vote. Give us your sense of whether or not they are likely to win the day at the Constitutional Court, given that one of my colleagues who was actually attending that particular court hearing today is saying we're likely to see a split from the judges. We're unlikely to see an unanimous decision.
Well, I think I understand this situation as if the Constitutional Court's main obligation is to confirm the judgment by the High Court. So it's not in the same way as a court case that starts completely afresh. So the My Vote Counts and the other NGOs who were involved in it already has won the first step, and this will be, in a sense, the confirmation. I think the fact that Parliament has already started and is at a very advanced stage with formulating a new bill, the funding of political parties bill, which includes almost all the aspects that have been asked for by the NGOs in their application at the High Court level, means that all the parties have in principle accepted it. It's now about the detail, and in Parliament they've gone past the point of the public hearings. We as a Department of Political Science at UNISA were involved in the public hearings last year in November. A lot of progress has been made. They have to now report back to Parliament and propose the final bill. So I think to some extent this development in Parliament has actually overtaken the legal and the judicial process. So to a large extent it complements each other. The important part of this court case is specifically with respect to PAIA, the Access to Information Act, the fact that it has been declared unconstitutional on these terms. And then there's an aspect which not many people are giving attention to, is that part of this judgment also that it should not only apply to national and provincial level parties or parties at the provincial and national parliament, but also for independent candidates at local government level. And that is quite a development. It does not include the parties at local government level. I'm not sure exactly why, but that means that it also introduces now local government or candidates at local level, which hasn't been in the past been involved in this debate.
Prof, talk to me about why is it important for South Africans to know who is funding the parties that they vote for, because this very same question did arise from that hearing today.
Yes, well, this is not something unique to South Africa. In many parts of the world, there's some form of either regulation of election funding, and in many countries of the world that is the case, or providing, regulating donations, private funding of political parties. In some instances, there's also the additional aspect of public funding of political parties, which already applies to South Africa. I think what is important is the question of who's actually influential in the funding process of political parties, who have access to political parties because they have been funded by these outside donors. It's almost a variation on the notion that is so well known in South Africa now, and that is of state capturing. And this is the other form of it. If therefore big corporates or business groups or other funders or even foreign governments give money to political parties in South Africa, it can mean that they actually have to serve those interests, that they are bound by those interests, and whatever decision they are made is in a sense directly influenced by those who are funding them. And that is why the South African public needs to know who are involved in this, and also to limit that influence. And that is why in this bill that is in the pipeline in Parliament, the committee decided that there must be a limit to the amount of money that any donor can give to a political party. And these are new developments, I think, which is limit the possible influence and through financial means of outside interest and the influence that they will have on political parties and ultimately the government.
Prof, just as a final question to you, therefore, how likely are these political parties to honestly disclose this information to the public if indeed this court case does go against them? The honesty here, Prof. I want to know from you, how honest are they going to be in giving us who really is funding them?
Well, the answer to that is what type of enforcement mechanisms are available. Most legislation have some form of punitive measures. The new bill that's in the pipeline has different punitive measures, and it can be taken to court. Political parties can be fined. In some cases, their funding by the public funds, the two public funds that will be established by Parliament, they can even forfeit that if they don't do it. So there's different means of it. However, one should not be starry-eyed about this because there's always gaps, there's always loopholes. For example, on the one hand, the proposed legislation, and I guess it might even include now the Constitutional Court, is to say that external governments, foreign governments, are not supposed to fund political parties, but it does not mean necessarily external or foreign political parties that are funding political parties in South Africa. So there's just one. Fronting in general is a huge problem in this respect. So there are many options that still, and loopholes that still have to be closed, but I think it's a very important step. Because several years ago, IDASA, as an NGO, started with it with an application in Cape Town. They didn't succeed, and I think with this, it's a very sincere or very definite step forward in terms of making progress in this respect.
All right, thank you very much for your insights. That's Professor Dirk Kotze coming to us live from our studios in Pretoria. Next.